All right, so Playdemic has announced the Riverside tournament. And the Riverside tournament's going to be at Sunshine Glades and Glen Monarch Estates. We've played a bunch of these holes this year, so everybody should be familiar with them. Have some good stuff. We're going to be able to play them in Tour 5 and Tour 9 and Tour 7 and 11. So we won't be able to play these Sunshine Glade holes from Ricky, but everybody should be pretty familiar with them. So let's go through what I did on YouTube. Is I set up a playlist at the channel just for Golf Clash Riverside Tournament Scouting Report. And one of the holes, it's hole number 5 of the tournament. I put 2 different ways to play that hole. I put doing the backspin and doing the max overpower hook. All right, let's get at it. So here's the hole. So if you don't already know what they are, so if you use Golf Clash Notebook as your resource, Sunshine Glades, I'll go through the holes. Hole number 1 of the Riverside tournament is Sunshine Glades, hole number 1. If you're actually looking at the course in Golf Clash Notebook. So hole number 2 of the Riverside tournament is Sunshine Glades, hole number 2. Hole number 3 is going to be Glen Monarch Estates, hole number 9. Hole number 4 is Glen Monarch Estates, hole number 5. Hole number 5 is Glen Monarch Estates, hole number 7. Hole 6 is Glen Monarch Estates, hole number 9. Or excuse me, sorry. It's Sunshine Glades, hole number 9. Hole number 7 is Glen Monarch Estates, hole number 6. Hole number 8 is Glen Monarch Estates, hole number 4. And hole number 9 is Glen Monarch, Sunshine Glades, hole number 3. All right, so those are going to be the holes. So let's go check them out. Let's go see what we got. So hole number 1 is going to be at Sunshine Glades. And it's going to be hole number 1, uno. Oh. All right. So let's talk about from rookie. There's a couple different ways that you can go at it. Are you kidding me? Do I have a pen? I have my old pen. Let's see if I erase. I put it back on. It's gone. All right. I got to remember how to use my old pen. There's a shot that you can do from right here with a QB, and your ball guide's going to be coming out here. Your first landing zone for your second bounce. So your first bounce is here, second bounce is over here, and you want to think of the arc. So if you put curl on it and you're on the inside, like where are you going to be out on that arc? So it's not like your ball lands here and you put curl on it and you land in the same plane. You're going to land somewhere in an arc. And your perfect spot is here. So if you hit it with curl on it, where is it going to end up? And you want to make sure that your second bounce is far enough forward that it can clear the sand. And you can do it with side spin, and we have bigger side spin balls than we've had before, but I still don't know if even a 4 side spin or a 5 side spin ball, because of how much backspin you have to put on it, if you could still engage enough of it to bring it all the way back to the cup without like rubbing up or ending up in the rough. There is a rough bump that you can do from right here where you can bring it forward, and if you bring, I think we were using like an extra mile on a power 3 ball, you could definitely use something more accurate, like an Apocalypse and a power 3 ball. I'm not sure if a rock will get you up there, or if you'd have to use even a bigger power ball if you wanted something that had more ball guide. And you can do a rough bump from this area right here. I think like if you were doing that rough bump and it didn't matter, bringing out a big enough ball so that you could use your rock if you have an upper developed rock would be much better. But you can do it with, you have got choices here. But with a 3 power ball, you can do it with an extra mile APOC, or you can come over here and bring it around. This shot right here is lower percentage just because you got to put curl on it. And anytime you put the word curl into a shot. I was talking to my teammate Kyle earlier about this hole, and we were laughing because when I saw that this hole was in there and I was going through the walkthrough video, one of the things that I remember, my buddy Kyle, I think he might have got his very first hole-in-one on a par 4 on this hole, doing a max curl shot with an APOC. And the shot takes you like this, coming around, so you're at the hole, but you notice that these trees are here, and he shot the shot and went in the hole, and it was like, awesome, hole-in-one. Don't do that shot again. Every time I've ever used max curl on this, I've clipped these trees over here. So there is a path that can go through them. So you could get through them, but you're apt to clip these trees if you do a lot of curl. So if you're doing this shot from right here, trying to bring it around, you definitely want to bring a big side spin ball to get you started. So you don't have to put max curl on it. You can stay on the inside of those trees. If you're doing the rough bump, it's a pretty straight up shot. It's just a matter of getting enough ball guide to get you up there. That's why I'm thinking a bigger power ball and a higher level rock might not be a bad combo. All right, that was hole number 1 of the Riverside tournament. Hole number 1 of Sunshine Glades. Hole number 2 of Riverside is going to be hole number 2 of Sunshine Glades. I think of this as the giraffe hole. Here's its legs, and here's its body, and then here's its big neck, and its head's up here in the trees. It's the giraffe hole. I do a rough bump on this, and I bring a sniper and a marlin. So you can use a 0 power ball. If you've got 0 power low wind in the weekend round, you could definitely switch it. You don't necessarily, I don't like to use the low wind balls leading up to the weekend round for several reasons. Number one, those balls are like having some of those available to you in a weekend round. But the other part of it is that leading up to the weekend round, I'm still a lot of times trying to work out the adjustment, whether it be an elevation or whether it be wind or whether it be something, the course or whatever, where we have to make an adjustment. And if I can get my wind right and I hit it perfect, it helps me out in the weekend round to have a lower wind ball, but leading up to that, it's kind of a waste. But there is a rough bump that you can do right here with a sniper and a marlin, doing 10% to the cup. And I was doing 1.3 per ring, so I must have been really close to min. I was at min club, and I was putting on about 2 topspin. So the last time we played this in a tournament, this is the setup I was doing. So I'm going to start there and see how it goes from that point. There is a shot that you can take from over here. So if you're playing one-on-one, there's kind of 3 ways that you can go. If you have a guardian in your bag and you've got it big enough, you can hit from right here. If you've got too big of a ball, your red line's going to be pushed forward, and you may have a hard time getting in that spot. So just depending on what ball you end up on this in one-on-one, you do have some choices. You can get up here and you can backspin it. You can do the rough bump, or you can shoot from over here and do the bounce over. All right, that was hole number 2. Hole number 3. What is hole number 3? Hole number 3, we're on the Glen Monarch Estates. Glen Monarch, hole number 9. All right, this is a tough par 5. And really, there's 2 ways. I put in somewhere in there, we played this hole this year, and I'm not sure because Golf Clash Notebook hasn't been updated. I'm not sure which tournament it was in. And there's kind of 2 ways that I'll go at this drive. The safe, I'm not necessarily sure it's the safer way, but one way to go is the way that this hole is in the walkthrough. You can come up here with an extra mile, APOC, one of your big hitting clubs, and try and get your bounces. So your bounce number 1, your bounce number 2, your bounce number 3, and then you come to a stop. And I was putting on, with that shot, it was about 2 1/4 topspin and about 1 1/4 left-hand side spin. So I was trying to straighten it out so that I was coming through this area down here and bleeding right through this tip area where I was getting a bounce over at the narrowest spot. So bounce number 2 is here and bounce number 3 is on the other side, but I couldn't. You got to watch how much topspin you put on, because if you put on any more than 2 1/4, depending on where you land out here, you'll end up in the rough up here. And this hole is not about the first shot. This hole is about setting yourself up for a second shot, because the second shot is brutal to get up. You know, your ideal landing spot is somewhere like on this side of that line is your ideal landing spot, so that you can dig your red line with either a big dog, cataclysm, a guardian, as far up into that as you possibly can. So if you're ending up short back here a lot, A big dog's probably going to be better because it has more topspin. So if your red line's back here, you can start here and try and get your bounce either to clip the rough over here into a rough bump, or you can get your second bounce so you're over the other side. And it may take more topspin than what you could get in a Guardian. Because for most of a Guardian's life, it only has 2.5. And so that's going to be a little, that if you're in the right spot and you're way up there, that 2.5 is fine. Because you may actually engage a little backspin. But if you're back a little bit, you didn't quite get all that you wanted, the Guardian may be a little short. If you play with the Guardian a lot, though, a Guardian will more than likely be just as good to get it done. But if you got lower developed stuff, I would definitely bring a big dog. And if you were playing from the Pro Tees, the whole deal on the Pro Tees is trying to getting out to this area, bringing out whatever you need to get out to this area. The second shot's exactly the same. So if you can get the drive worked out so that you can pick up the extra distance, so you can bleed through this way and try and get through and try and get your bounces right. I'm not sure on this if I was doing a wind adjustment, but it almost seems like we need to be doing a wind adjustment on the drive, like a 10, 20%. It is downhill. What I want to work out this week is trying to get where I'm getting my bounce to clip the rough and I'm just bleeding forward. Number one, it puts me lower on the fairway down here. So if I can get my drive where I can get my bounces right and work out the adjustment so that I clip the rough right here, where I'm giving myself good room on the left or the right. So if my trajectory was off up here to the left or the right, I could still end up clipping that rough. And then just bleed forward into this area, because this quadrant of the front is closer to the green than it is over here. So when you're coming to the green, you got a little bit better angle at it. So I'm going to try and put myself into this quadrant by clipping the rough and just bleeding forward. And I'm not exactly sure how I'm going to get that done, but I know you can get it done, because the last time we played this in a tournament, that's the shot that I was taking. So that'll put my approach somewhere in this quadrant coming to the cup, so that I can get as deep down here as possible and be on a pretty good line to it. This cup is difficult to get into. It's not a high percentage Alvey type hole. I mean, you can use the word Alvey here. It is possible, but this is a tough hole to get an Alvey on. The goal here is eagle, because there's going to be a ton of people in the bracket who do not get an eagle on this. There's only going to be a handful of people up at the top that eagled this hole both times through. So you want to be in that group. So getting an Albie here would be like spectacular, but getting an eagle here is absolutely the goal. And a big ball does not hurt here. Although I don't think that you have to bring out a power 5 ball. I think a power 5 ball may make it easier, but it might be a little bit of overkill. If you've got some power 4s, a power 4 will help you. But this is definitely one shot at a time, trying to make sure you're in the right spot here, you're in the right delivery system, and you've got to make sure you have the right club for the area that you're landing. So if you're not getting to where you want, but you're landing in a consistent area, then you got to make sure that you just, if it's farther back and the Guardian doesn't work, then bring out a big dog. I mean, that's how it works. All right, that was hole number 3. Hole number 4. Hole number 4 is Glen Monarch Estates, hole number 5. All right, so there's several ways that you can shoot this shot. There is a rough bump that you can do from right here with a sniper and come up through. There's also, and I think the shot that I demo, I'm not sure whether it's the Guardian shot or whether it's you can come up here with a Guardian and you can do backspin to the cup. Where the benefit of the backspin, so here's how this little peanut shapes. So when you're in this area right here, it looks like this, and it comes down. So if you hit a grate to the left, when it hits a grate to the left, and it'll end up washing out down towards the end, and it'll end up grate to the right. If you hit it on the right hand side, it'll wash out down to the bottom, and it'll end up grate to the left. But there's a trough that runs right down through the middle. And this is one of those holes that if you're right on that trough, or if you make a bad wind adjustment and you catch a great, it could go in if everything was right, if the speed was right, it could still go in. But perfect here will put you right at the cup. Great to the left or the right may put you on the opposite side. So there's a rough bump that you can do with a sniper, great ball guide, or there's a backspin shot you can do with a guardian. But the last time we played this in a tournament, I was like, I couldn't get the adjustment quite right. And we were doing a 10% to the cup. And I saw my buddy Dale Appleby shoot a shot on this where it was with a Goliath and a Kingmaker. Instead of a sniper and a Marlin, it was a Goliath and a Kingmaker to push the Goliath up there, and the shot was money. The very first time I took it, bam, hole in one. I think I took that shot 3 times and I made 2 hole-in-ones out of 2 out of 3. So there is another way to go at it out there, and I'm going to have to ask my buddy Dale what that shot was with the Goliath, but it was definitely money. I'll have to ask him. So we do have some options on this hole. But I'm pretty sure that the shot that I'm thinking about with Dale was with a Goliath, because I don't normally use a Goliath. It was with a Goliath and a Kingmaker. All right, hole number 5 is Glen Monarch Estates, hole number 7. All right, there's 3 ways that you can go at this hole. The white line. If you're going to take the white line, take everything in your bag needs to be backspin. So if you hit it out here where you're engaging the green, here's the green, and then here's the fringe, and here's the fairway, and here's that little rough patch, and then here's water. So the green right here is somewhat flat, but it is going in this direction. There is a little bit of a backboard here. And so if you pick up any speed, if you're trying to backspin it in there, because the cup is so close to the edge of the green, you have to kind of backspin it to get it up there, or you have to engage this really steep ass hill. And it's super easy to end up overdrawing it here. And it's hard to come at it if you don't have a backspin club. So you're going to need to bring a backspin club if you want to try and actually go for the cup, but you can be in big trouble if you overdraw it. So in your bag, like for the second shot, like traditionally, like a Thorn, a Saturn, a Claw, a Grim Reaper, but your secondary clubs as well, because if you overshoot down there at the end, the further you are to the end, the more you are in your short iron range. So the further you get down there, if you overshoot it and you end up in the rough or the sand, you want to make sure you bring your machete and a Houdini or a Castaway or one of the clubs that has lots of backspin. The other way to do this, and you get an actual better look at the cup, is to lay it up right here. And from this area, I can't remember if it's long iron or if you're right there in your wood. It comes right along this edge, and I would definitely, if I remember correctly, there is like a 10% adjustment, or there is an adjustment we need to make down here, because it's really easy to end up clipping this rough and end up out of shape. I would want to set this up where I bring a side spin ball. So even though you're laying it up on the drive, you may bring a ball like a Kingmaker or a Katana, something that's got more side spin, so that you can try and give yourself some separation off of this rough, and you can try and bring it back around to the cup. So those are the 2 ways to play this hole, like traditional sense, safe ways to play them. I'm going to play where I'm going to bring out an extra mile. I'm going to bring out a Katana. I'm going to start off, because every time you do these types of max overpower hook shots, you have to start off at the beginning of the week with something, and then you have to treat it like artillery. You have to really watch where your first landing spot is, so that you can see, do I need to bring it to the right, or I need to bring it to the left? Where am I ending up on the other side? So when it's fully extended, when your ball guide's fully extended, I'm going to have my white ring is going to be fully in the sand, and my clear ring is going to be fully on the rough, so that the transition between the white and the clear ring is right there on that transition between the sand and the rough. I'm going to put on 4.5. I put on 4.5, excuse me, let me write it up here, 4.5 top spin. And I put on, it was probably 5.5 left-hand side spin. It was kind of balanced out. So 4.5 topspin, and then I could put on whatever was left in left-hand side spin. And I'm going to do a max overpower hook shot. I took the wind out. I don't care which way the wind's blowing. Take the wind out. Let's take that variable completely out of the equation. Took the wind out, doing a max overpower hook shot, and the goal is to land up here. And most of the time on this trajectory, I don't have a putt. I'm right off the green and I have a chip. But I want to end up right in this area with a short little rapier chip to the cup. I'm in the range where wind is typically not a factor. I'm that close off the green. And the trajectory that it comes in from this, because of this little fairway, because of this little rough patch area right here. Let me zoom in there a little. When you're coming in at the cup, I typically end up out in this area out here. And I have overdrove it and ended up in the sand several times. And if I get in the rough, it's usually up here. So dialing in that topspin so that I land up in this area and I've got this chip to get in, because if you're trying to get your trajectory, instead of coming out in this area, coming along this line to get onto the green, you can't at that point. There's no way you can get down to the cup, so you have a long putt. And I would rather take, if you guys watch my stuff on a regular basis, I would rather take a chip than a putt, a long putt, every day of the week, every day. All right, that was hole number 7. And this hole right here, I did put two. I put the backspin shot from up above in the playlist, and I put the max overpower hook shot in there so you could see both ways. But really, all 3 of those shots, you have legitimate chances. They're just all 3 different. All right, hole number 6 of the Riverside tournament is going to be on Sunshine Glades, hole number 9. Hole number 9. Okay, in one-on-one play, I always play this hole to the right, and I try and get out here and get around the bend. You have 0 shot at picking up an Albie. 0. I mean, in my opinion, I mean, it's not that you couldn't get an Albie from over there. It's just like it's not a repeatable, like, hey, dial this in and hit perfect and you got a serious chance. I mean, it's a crap shot. But in one-on-one, especially with lower developed club or balls, if you're bringing a Marlin out on this hole, you can get it done from over here. If you could get way up to the front, you'd have a more legitimate shot. I should not be out here. All right, sorry about that. Where I live out in Oregon, I live in the center of the Willamette Valley, and the valley is on fire. We've got fires in the eastern part of the state, and they were able to get over the wind change direction. We had a big windstorm here, and it pushed the fires from the eastern side of the mountains to the western side of the mountains. And I live in between 2 mountain ranges in this big valley, and the sky is orange, and it's been orange for the last 3 days. So we're in the fallout. We know what it feels like to be through the nuclear holocaust. All right, so back on this hole. So one-on-one, I usually play out into this area, but in tournaments, there's several different ways that you can go at this. There is a rough bump that's right here. And so if you're on track, if you're trying to get squared up with it, somewhere out in this area, so that you can get so you don't want to come at it at too much of an angle, because then you got to put a lot of side spin, and you'll have to get up here towards the corner. So if you're trying to come in at it, and here's the corner, you want to try and come in at it where you're up here and you're square with it, as opposed to over here on the side where you're having to bring it around. You have no room on the right hand side when you're over here, so the more you can get in front, so the more you can be out here towards the sand, so you've got that straight in shot, the better. The other way that you can come at it is you can lay it up right out in this area, so that when it pans around and looks back at the cup, you're seeing the edge of this bush. So you're kind of like out in this area, and this shot here brings you in like this, and so you can leave yourself a couple rings of separation here with a sniper, and you can walk it up to the cup. So there's one. Get out here a little bit farther, you can take this rough bump shot, And you can do this rough bump with a Guardian. I think if you can get far enough in there, you can probably do it with a sniper. I know that like trying to make the Albie here, this rough bump is definitely a nice way to do it. So like getting out into that area. So there are several ways that you can do the drive from over here. Extra mile, Apocalypse, big topper. With a big topper and a power, which ball was this? Big topper and a, I'm not sure which, plus 10% Hornet. Nah, that's not the one. Yeah, this is the one. So it's hole number 6. So this is number 9, right? And just making sure I'm on the right holes here. Maybe looking at my notes, trying to remember what the holes are. I don't remember what the holes are, so I'm trying to remember. Extra mile, Kingmaker, Guardian, rough bump, or you can bring a sniper. Big topper works with the Kingmaker as well. There is a wind adjustment. It wants to carry, the last few times we've been in a tournament here, the wind's been blowing in this direction, and it wants to carry farther down into that hole. And it is very easy to especially if you're doing overpower here and you're bringing out a bigger ball, it's very easy to end up overshooting it right here and ending up in the rough and in big trouble. But with a big topper, not using the wind and the power 3 ball, I can get up into this area. If I put any overpower on it, is what it would take in order to get up into this, up further. So if you want to get up further, it's going to be overpower, because I don't think really a big power ball is going to help you too much on the drive. There is room here, but I think if you're bringing out a bigger power ball, you probably wouldn't want to use any overpower. If you had to do overpower, a power 3 would be better, because it would almost ensure that you won't end up digging up here. We have lots of options on our drive, but it is definitely one shot at a time. So depending on where you're trying to get, if you're not willing to take the risk to get up here with overpower, you can do this shot right here with no overpower. And you can come straight out with your sniper. And you do have a little bit less chance of making the picking up the Albie than you do up here, but it's a pretty decent shot. All right, that was hole number 6. For some reason, I thought I was on hole number 7. That's why I was like, where am I at? I left for a minute and came back and couldn't remember. Hole 6, Glen Monarch Estates. So hole number 7 of the Riverside tournament's hole 6 of Glen Monarch Estates. There's actually a black line. There's several ways that you can go at this. In the video that I post, my opponent goes from the yellow line and gets a hole-in-one, so you can take a look at that shot. And you've got one bounce here, one bounce on the other side. I believe on this hole, I'm doing a 20% wind adjustment, but I'm hitting from the other side, so I'm not sure if you're hitting from over here. You're probably in that same range. There's definitely a wind adjustment to be made. There's a rough bump that you can do on the other side with a Guardian and a Marlin. Well, there's 3 ways that you can go at this. You can do the Guardian and go straight at the cup, max backspin, about 6 backspin, 7 backspin, and go straight at the cup. You can do a sniper rough bump going straight at the cup. I've been doing the sniper. I've done both of those. I've done all 3 of these shots, but in tournaments I typically will do the rough bump depending on which way the wind's blowing. So if the wind's blowing, if we're getting a headwind or any kind of side wind, the rough bump will probably work fine. But if we're getting a big tailwind where I'm having to pull back towards the water, if I have to get too far out in there and I don't have a low wind ball, I may switch to the backspin shot. It'll just depend on which way the wind's blowing here. I was looking at the wrong hole earlier. Where is that hole? This must be the one right here. Hole number 8. Hole number 8 of the Riverside tournament is going to be Glen Monarch Estates, hole number 4. This was the hole I was thinking we were on. Now this hole right here, there's some new additions on this hole. There's some new trees that they put on here recently that are over in this area. And the max overpower hook shot on this side, if you're using an extra mile, is probably still there. But if you're using an Apocalypse to get you around, the max overpower hook shot with an extra mile and a bigger ball, I can't get in front of the sand enough so that I can straighten my line out to the green. You're way over here on the end, so even with max curl, I've been able to make it over there, but I've ended up in the rough, in this little teeny fairway patch, and in the sand several times. And that's about as much as I can get around. So the last time we played this, I tried doing it with an apocalypse, but I ended up clipping these trees. There is another hook that you can do from this side, and there's also a max overpower shot you can take from this side. And this is a shot that I'm going to be exploring this week, because I want to see if there's a way for me to get up on in one. But if you can't get up on in one, this hole, I think more than any other hole that I can think of in the game, there's multiple landing zones here and over here, and depending on which way the wind is blowing is going to determine where you want to land. So the last time we played this in a tournament, I think the wind was blowing in this direction. So if you could get past this sand and get right up into here, when you went to the cup, you were dealing with almost pure tailwind. The time before that this was in a tournament, the wind was blowing like this. And so if you laid up right here, your second shot was with pure tailwind, and so it wasn't as critical. The wind adjustment wasn't as critical. So what was critical was laying it up out there so that you were as close to the cup as you could get on the line between where the cup was and which way the wind was blowing. So you wanted wherever that line intersected. So if the wind's blowing like this, then we would want to get somewhere out on this line, out in this area, so that we've got a pure tailwind coming in. And really, on this hole, which way the wind's blowing, that's going to determine which one of these spots that I'm going to lay up in. If I can't get this shot over here, where I'm either doing a max overpower hook or I'm doing just a max overpower shot to try and get on a one. But I'm going to explore that shot, and that's all I'm going to be working on this week. If I get towards the opening round, weekend round, and I haven't figured out something or seen something and been able to go out there and replicate it, then I will switch back to one of the shots just coming in with your Hornet. Because the thing here is that from the green, let me zoom in a little. From the green, here's the green, out into about right there, you're in minimum short iron range. So your short iron probably runs like somewhere out into this range. So like minimum short iron, you draw a circle around the green. So if you could get to right here, you're in minimum short iron. If you get to right here, you're in minimum short iron. You get to right here, you're in minimum short iron. So whichever way the wind's blowing. If the wind's blowing in like this, I want to get out here. If the wind's blowing in like this, I want to get here. If the wind's blowing like this, I want to get right there. And so you want to find that spot so that you're within the maximum minimum of your short iron and trying to get on that ring. And so just depending on where the wind's blowing, you can treat it like a clock. Now, if the wind's blowing where it's coming like this through the rough, then we'll just have to deal with it. But anytime you don't have to hit against any side wind, that is beneficial. Faux show. All right, that was hole number 8 of the Riverside tournament. How much time have we gone here? 33 minutes. Hell, I'm like so far ahead of schedule. It's unbelievable. What are we doing here? We're doing Sunshine Glades, hole number 3. All right. This is another one of those holes that in one-on-one I've had a lot of luck on this hole. I've hit a lot of albies on this hole in one-on-one, but in tournament time I think I've maybe hit one. And I've played this hole a ton of times. So it really, the landing zone down here, let's talk about where you want to land. So let's look at the green. Like, how do we want to come at this green? There is a rough bump that you can do over here, but this is one of those kind of rough bumps that, let's say you're right here, you're as close to the sand as you can get, and you're up here in the front, like somewhere on this trajectory. If you're coming in at the green and the cup's right there, and you're trying to do this rough bump, this is one of those where you've got to, like, this rough right here is actually better than this rough, unless you've got a ball that's got side spin that can bring you back around. And so it might not be a bad deal to get out here so that you can bring your ball around, because then you're kind of going uphill towards the cup. But the more side spin you put on a shot like this, the more risk you'll take, that every time you land you'll get an irregular bounce. And it can throw you off a trajectory. And this is a tricky type of rough bump. I think the last time that we had this in a tournament, Epic failed on this hole. in the weekend round, and I've played this hole a billion times, and this hole just like ate my lunch that week. And I was trying different stuff, and it just kicked my ass. But that, if you want to do the rough bump, you're going to have to be as close to the sand as possible. If you want a cleaner shot at it, so that you can give yourself a couple rings of separation against this rough, and you're not dealing with anything at all except for the green, you want to be underneath these shadows. So the farther you can get underneath the shadows, the straighter in your shot's going to be, and the cleaner it's going to be to the cup, where there's none of this rough or anything's really in a factor. And you'll have to run it up there a little bit more. So the deal is that this green is not flat. There's a ridge that runs right along this area right here. And so it's kind of flat over on this side, and then it drops off on this side. So when you're coming in from distance like this and you're trying to run it up, it's very easy to end up off trajectory at the end, because you're dealing with drop. It's not wind. So you can make a wind adjustment and go, well, hey, I'll make a wind adjustment and do it. And what it is that as the ball starts to slow down, everything's dropping to the left. As the ball starts to slow down, it gets caught up more in gravity or it gets caught up more in the break. And so it starts to drift off to the left, or it'll stay up on top of the ridge. You had just a little teeny bit too much speed, and it stayed on top of the ridge, and it blew through the break. And so it's really hard to get the ball to like get a consistent look when you're over. You got a great look. It's just hard to get a consistent drop. And so I'm not sure. This hole is one of those holes that it's just, for me, even though I've been close, I don't know how many times, it's just a really inconsistent hole to get an albie on. But I know that there are people out there that get albies on this hole all the time, so we'll have to pay attention to what they're doing. But the eagle here should be almost a given. Like, it should be really, really difficult not to get the eagle. So on the drive, let's talk about the drive now that we know where we want to end up. So if you're trying to do the rough bump, you want to end up here, and if you're trying to come in straight out and you want the cleanest shot you can get, you want to end up over here under the shadows. Anywhere in between, you got a clean shot. But if you're trying to take the rough bump, you have to be over here. And you don't want to be over here and trying to take that rough bump. You didn't set yourself up for it. So if you're wanting to do the rough bump over here, anything else, you can go straight in. This landing pad, this fairway right here is like this. So it's humped up, and here's the center, and so really the fairway, the flat part of the fairway is kind of like right here, and then everything else is rolling down the hill. And when I say leave myself 2 rings of separation, I'm always thinking 2 rings of separation between any transitional surface. So like we went from the fairway to the first cut of the rough, to the second cut of the rough, to the third cut of the rough. So we have a transition in between the second and the third, and a transition between the first and the second, a transition between the rough and the fairway. And so I always want to leave myself 2 rings of separation between any transitional surface. I think of where it drops off here as a transitional surface. I want to be way away from that. You don't want your ball, if you catch a grate to the left or the right, to be involved in that drop. So there's no reason to pressure yourself. Here's where most people go wrong on these types of shots, is they set their ball up right here, and their ball guide, let's look at the tee box, so we can draw a straight line and you'll see exactly what I'm saying. Here's the tee box, and here's the center. You draw a line between those two, and extend that line out. Your ball guide's going like that. So you're out towards the middle of the sand, probably even more towards this side. And you put on max side spin, max top spin, and set your club up so you can do max curl, and you're trying to cover this distance. So the more curl you have, if you have an extra mile, you're going to find yourself out here in the middle. If you come here with a QB, you're going to find yourself out here, and with a QB, you're about 3 rings off, about 4 rings off from down here, like literally dead center in the middle of this pad. And with a QB, you'll end up coming up towards the shadows. If you've got an apocalypse or a rock, very same thing. So it works better when you have more curl here, if you want to end up towards the shadows. QB, rock, apoc, those will work better. So the goal is to get in the shadows or up here close to the sand, depending on which way you're going to go to the green. And then we have 2 shots to the cup. And I was doing, the last time we played this, I was doing a plus 10% to the cup is where I was at. And I'm going to use a sniper at 1 per ring. I'm going to go at it just the straight. I've tried that rough bump. I switched here over the last few times we played this because I was trying to mix it up to see if I could find something different. I started hitting over here to see if I could work this out. And I had more epic fails down here. I was getting the drive was no problem whatsoever, but I was having more problems down here and then epic failing the hole than over here. It's a straight in shot. It may be, what's funny is it's a straight in shot, but it's a tough shot to get in the hole. I'm just curious if there isn't a shot that we could do to get ourselves out, because if you think about where our arc is to the cup, let me exit that out here real quick. You think about where our arc is to the cup. So from here out into this area, we're in wood. And so if we draw our arc out here, we would be in wood. If we were out here, the shot coming to the cup, if you're doing a rough bump, is straight across that rough. That rough is perpendicular with you, and that is a great type of rough bump. So like, what would it take? Now, if we can land here, now you can, if you bring out a bigger power ball, you can start off on the other side and try and use some backspin to hold it off up there. But this shot coming from here over with like even a katana is super easy. And a katana is a great ball for this hole. But if our red line, you know, with a 3 power ball is up in that area, let's get back up here where we can see where we're going. So if our red line is like right here with a 3 power ball from here, then our arc is going across like this. So we could start off in this area, and we need to get up into here. I'm just wondering if there isn't a max overpower hook shot we could do over here if we can clear all of these trees. So I'm not sure if there's anything obstructing our vision over there. But there may be an opportunity for us with like a big topper to get way up into this area where we could end up with a rough bump from this side, and that would be a much better rough bump to do than trying to hit from over here, because I just think that the angle over here for the rough bump is tricky. It's not that it can't be done, but it could get even the best of us in trouble. All right, that was hole number 9 of the Riverside tournament. There's some pretty fun holes in here, and I'll have to kind of go through and really think about minimum score and where we're at. There's a couple of these holes, one of the par 4s for sure, we're going to absolutely need to get an eagle on. That puts us at minus 13. I think there's at least a couple of the par 5s, one of the par 5s for sure. That's a really tough hole that a lot of people are going to epic fail on. I think that's hole number 3. So we have some opportunities, and the par 3s that are here we've got some hole-in-one opportunities on all of the par 3s. So this could be one of those really wild tournaments where it'll be really easy to epic fail, but we've got lots of opportunities to pick some shots up. All right, that was the walkthrough for the Riverside tournament. And it starts on Monday, so hopefully everybody will get some practice in, and I will see you then. Thanks for watching.